There are times when your life is full and your schedule is packed. When this occurs, what do you do? Stay tuned because I am talking about this subject on our podcast today. I want to welcome you today to the Four Leaders Podcast, and my name is Ronnie Floyd. Our subject today is the following: when your life is full and your schedule is packed. This is our 65th podcast on the Four Leaders Podcast, and I hope that you will continue to be with us on a weekly basis. Share about this podcast with people that you know. And remember, since this is number 65 podcast episode, that means there are 64 that precede this one. So if you are new, there is so much content over the last year or so, and I hope that you will go and find some things that will help you and encourage you in your life. When you think about the subject, when your life is full and your schedule is packed, here's what I think about. Did you know that anytime you exceed your limits in your life, it wears on you spiritually, relationally, emotionally, mentally, vocationally, and even physically? Listen carefully. Margin is the space between you and your limits. Whatever your limits are, margin is that space between you and your limits. So if there is no space at all, this podcast will help you. If you want to ensure that more space is created than you have today, then this podcast will help you. The question is this: how much space is in your life for rest, enjoyment, personal time, and experiencing life in a way that is refreshing to you? I want you to know today that I have been where many of you are. Your schedule is absolutely packed, and your life is full. So what do you do? No one ever masters this. This is an ongoing struggle, at times a dance, if you may. Even this week, there are some of you who are listening or watching, and you have had conversations with your team at the office or in the workplace, or maybe you've had conversations with your spouse about this very subject, where you look at each other and say, we need more time in our schedules. Life is full and the schedule is packed. And what you're really crying out for is some space for you to be able to think creatively and to enjoy life fully. Those things are hard to achieve, as you well know, because many of you with children still at home, I mean, their lives in themselves is way too busy. The schedules for children today and teenagers is absolutely beyond needed. And this is why all of us at times must stop ourselves and reassess everything around us. When you find yourself in this place, and again, many of you are there right now, what do you do? Because you will find yourself there. I continually find myself there. So I come to you today as someone who has been there and has worked through it. I felt like I have conquered it before, and at the same time, I fail at it again. But there is some things that I have done through the years that I'm going to share with you that will maybe help you stay more on track, just as I desire to stay on track about these matters. To me, we have to address this challenge because that's what it is. It's a challenge. When life is full, fuller than full, or when your schedule is packed and packed beyond the limits, listen, how do we deal with this? I think we must deal with this biblically and practically. I'm going to spend just a moment on the biblically, but I want to talk about the practical with you today. Let's begin with the biblical approach to these matters. As a Christ follower, a Jesus follower, what should you do when your life is full and your schedule is packed? How should you respond to that? What should you do? Living on the edge like that, is that really God's will for your life? You have to figure that out. I'm not going to accuse you of doing this or doing that. It's not my place. But you have to navigate where you are in your life and what you want your life to be like. And that's different for each one of us. But there are still biblical realities that will help shepherd us through these challenging moments when we face the life that is fuller than full and the schedule that is packed and beyond. I want to encourage you today to do this. Park your life right now. Park your life right now. Just like you would pull over in your car, you do that in your life. You pull aside for a few moments, some personal moments, even if you have to get up earlier in the morning or stay up later at the night to get it. Even if it's 5 minutes, that's more than you've had. I want to ask you to imagine in that time period when you're there alone with God. I want you to imagine that you're in a beautiful place, wherever it is. To me, I would imagine the ocean and sitting out in a chair early one morning, maybe as the sun is coming up, and thinking through life, thinking through my life that is full and my schedule that is packed. And when we are in those settings, whether it's in a beautiful place like that, or whether it's in our home, in our favorite chair, or laying down on the couch, or sitting out on the porch and thinking, here's what I want you to meditate upon. Psalm 46, verse 10. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am God. There are two things that are mentioned in this passage, and they're simple. They're actually in the verse itself. Be still. Be still. And when you are so still and still enough, listen, then you will know I am God. That's really what God is saying to us. When you are still and you will continue to be still long enough, you're going to know that I am God. So whether it's in that chair at the beach or on your back porch or in your favorite chair in your home, just be still and be still long enough, and you'll begin to realize God is God. You are not, I am not, but God is God. I want you to know this today about God. God is sovereign. God is in control. God rules all things. And even when your life is full and your schedule is packed and margin does not exist, God is still sovereign. So be still and realize He is God. Yes, you are in God's hands, and God has you right now. And one thing about God, God is pulling for you. God is praying for you. God is cheering you on. But even in this, God wants you to pull aside, and He wants you to park your life. Think for a moment. We call that meditation, and pray. You see, we must be still, and still long enough that we realize in our mind and our heart, even when it seems so full, God is there, and God is with you, and God will see you through. But even when we know these things, that's not going to take away the full, and that's not going to take away a schedule that's packed. But we go into this practical side knowing that God is God, and that we know that. And He's going to show us how to deal with where we are right now. So let's talk about this subject practically. So what happens in your life when your life is full and your schedule is packed? From a practical side, what can we do? Now, understanding and realizing the importance of what the Bible says about being still and knowing God, you still have to address those challenges practically. You can't wish them away. They're still there. So how can you create some margin, some time, some space, listen, some peace? I think one of the real keys to this is addressing this in a practical way. Recently, I began to implement this and think through it. And I came up with 5 actions that we can take when our life is full and our schedule is packed. Action number 1, assess everything. Assess everything. Meaning, assess your life, assess your schedule. If you have 3 children, assess each of them and their schedules. If you have your spouse with you, assess them and their schedule. Assess everything, meaning grab a hold of what reality is. Is the schedule really, really packed? Or is it just you haven't stopped long enough to realize it's not? You're just on the treadmill of life and you don't know how to get off of it. But understand reality. You have to find reality. You cannot go anywhere if you don't know where your reality is. Now, what do you find yourself in this situation with a calendar or with your own full life? But you just need to know where you are if you want to get away from it or reassess it or look at it again in a brand new way. So assess everything. Second action is establish priorities. Establish priorities. I think one of the ways to establish priorities beyond the biblical manner would be this. How important is your faith to you? Why don't you ask yourself that? Because when you're so full of all these things, sometimes faith drops down the ladder. Or how important is your family? You may think loving your family is, doing all these things around here, but that may not be the best thing for your family. How much do you love your church? And how important is your church to you? Do you want to grow your children up, your families up, your own life up without church and worship and fellowship and people around you that you enjoy living life with? And really, you have to ask, just like we all do, how important is our health to us? Because when your life is fuller than full and your schedule is packed, you talk yourself out of any kind of exercise. You talk yourself out of anything that expends energy because you're already feeling that energy on this track you're on in regarding to the treadmill of life. But to me, I think we have to ask more important questions. How's my relationship with God? Do I really want God showing me through and how to get through this thing? What place will my family have in my life? Beyond the relationship with Christ and relationship with my family, what are those other opportunities and priorities in my life? I think it's your church. That's definitely one of those. And I believe obviously you have a job, the workplace, wherever you are, whatever you do. That's important. I don't think it's more important than your church. I don't think it's more important than your faith. It's certainly not more important than your family either. But your workplace is important. Your job is important. Your career is important. It would be foolish to think it's not. But keep it in the right priority. And then one of those priorities probably would be recreation, things we enjoy, things we like to do. There's nothing wrong with that. We need to enjoy those moments in life. So I think we have to assess everything, establish our priorities, and then we have to implement a plan. That's number 3, to implement a plan. Now, what do I mean by this? A tangible plan. Here's what we're going to do to address the problem. What's the problem? Life is too full. Schedule is packed. So we've assessed everything. We're going to establish our priorities in the right way. And now we're going to put those priorities into action, and they're going to help us decide what's in and what's out, what is permissible and what is not. A tangible plan. let's do this, let's try this, and in 30 days we'll look at it again. Also, while you're doing that, plan some safeguards in your decision making that prevents you from getting where you are right now again, because you can easily go back there. So don't do that. But assess things 30 days from now. How have we done? Are we better? Do we feel healthier as a family or as an individual? Am I having a little bit of time now when I didn't have any? Have I assessed matters and dealt with them accurately where my priorities are in action and they're helping me to make decisions that need to be made in the right way? The fourth thing I would say would be to learn to say no. Learn to say no. This is difficult on all of us. You would think somebody that has been around life like I'm in my 6th decade of living, you would think I would have that conquered, but I still struggle with saying no. I like to say yes. Obviously, I always want to say yes to God, but I like saying yes to people. I want to please them. I want to show them that I care for them, that I want to help them. But sometimes, we just need to say no. We cannot do everything well. That's the question. I cannot do everything well. No one can. And you know what? Saying yes is much easier than saying no. Would you agree? Can you vote on that? That's why we get in these situations. But start saying no. It's really okay to say, I would love to help you, but I just cannot do this. I want to help you, but I cannot. Now, one thing you can consider is maybe I can do it, but I've got to eliminate 2 things to let me do that. Okay. Are there 2 things you can eliminate so you can do this other thing that may be even more of a priority and more a blessing to you and those that you can serve or love or your family or in whatever situation that is? You have to learn to not only do that, but it's also about, what do I need to eliminate on my present schedule? What is there that I don't have to do? Get rid of it. If you don't have to do it, don't do it. You may say, well, I like to do it. Okay, well, you can't do everything. If you're in that pressed moment, then okay, now eliminate. A year from now, it may not be that way. Number 5, simplify your life. Simplify your life. Now, what does it mean to simplify your life? All right, here we go. Listen, these are our priorities. This is how we want to live our life together as a family, or this is how we're going to operate our department at the job or our company. But as for me and my family, this is what we want to do. And we're going to do this. So simplify your life. Don't make those things difficult and hard. So the next time you find yourself, and many of you are there right now, where your life is full. I like to say this sometime, when life is fuller than full, and your schedule is already packed beyond the limits. What do you need to do? First, assess everything. Secondly, establish priorities. Thirdly, implement a plan. Fourth, learn to say no. And fifth, simplify your life. In closing, I would encourage you to do this. Ask God to help you. Ask God to give you the wisdom to do the right thing. Ask God to give you the power to get a hold of your schedule and create greater margin in your personal life and with your family. And when you have done this, and you are more free than ever before, you be sure you build the safeguards around your life to not get yourself there again.